Hey everybody at Little Wars TV, I am here with Steve, and we are down in Havre de Grace, Maryland at Barrage, which is a two-day convention that is run by the Hawks. And we are having a great time. It's the first time that you and I have ever been to Barrage.
Right.
Keith, I believe, has been here previously.
And we have him hard at work, still GMing a game inside.
He is, and there have been a lot of really cool games in there. They've got a great turnout. What are one or two of the games that jumped out to you as you were walking through?
Well, you know, we're a historical channel, but I will tell you the game that jumped out at me, and it's because of the miniatures. And I know the GM from years ago when I was in a historical game, but he's running a dungeon crawl here. We're actually going to have an interview with him. He just makes some fantastic miniatures out of little wood craft bits and a fantastic paint job.
I never thought about making my own miniatures before, but having seen his,
yeah.
I'm already thinking about making some little chariots, and I mean, very impressive.
Right.
Those miniatures were cool.
How about you? You see anything?
Well, I am a purely historical gentleman, as you know, so of course I was looking for some historical games, and there is a really neat setup for a Siege of Fort Pitt game in there.
Yep.
It's on a huge tabletop, tons of 28mm miniatures, the great fort setup. So that's a fantastic looking game, and we've also got a little interview with the GM,
right,
who is running that game.
For the first time at one of these conventions, we had Little Wars TV GMs running games. In one case, which Greg will talk about in a moment, a game that's actually been the subject of one of our episodes, but Keith was running a nice big World War II game, Eastern Front, Kirk, which saw some great action at the 15mm scale, tanks blowing up. In other words, you know, exactly what you want from a war game.
While Keith was running his World War II game, I was running Age of Hannibal, the same scenario that you guys just saw in episode 6. It was the Battle of the Trebia, and it was a hard-fought game. By the time we got to the end of the game, there were actually over 35,000 casualties, either killed or had fled from the field. So a bloody battle, but I think everybody enjoyed the Age of Hannibal rules.
So, great game. It was easy for everybody to figure out the rules by at least turn 2 or 3, except for our opponents who were cheating. So, absolutely wonderful game.
One of the best tables that I think we've seen here today is the Fort Pitt table that was put together by Bill here.
Hello, everyone.
Who's decided to join me. So, you know, in talking to you about this, one of the coolest things I think you told me was, you know, you don't just game this on the tabletop.
True, yeah.
You're a reenactor, too.
I do reenacting. We had Bushy run earlier.
And I mean, it's just another way that you can explore history and the different streams you can follow. And, you know, how long did it take you to put together that Fort Pitt?
That whole project probably 62 hours, 3 or 4 days worth of work.
Got to go to the fort and make all the measurements when you're out there, right? Yeah, of course. And you don't just do the historical wargaming and the reenacting. You're like a designer.
And I make board war games.
Yeah.
I have multiple This is my newest one, Bloody Mohawk by Lock and Load, 12 scenarios of the French Indian War. And I have Wilderness Empires, Struggle for New France. I primarily make board games on the French Indian War.
So, hey, thanks a lot for talking with us, Bill. Great looking table.
Come and
Great
play.
being here with the Hawks.
I see it falling.
Absolutely. Steve here again at Barrage, and I am here with one of the GMs that's attending this weekend, running a bunch of games, Matt Kirk. Thanks for talking to us.
Yep.
Now, he's not doing a historical game here. It's more kind of a dungeon crawl type of thing.
Absolutely.
But, you know, check out some of these figures. I've got some here. We'll throw some other ones up on the screen. And, you know, what inspired you to make your miniatures out of these little wood craft bits years ago?
Years ago, yeah. Believe it or not, I got interested in playing Chinese chess, but I couldn't understand the labels that they use for the pieces because they're in Chinese. And I thought, but the pieces are things like elephants or chariots. And I thought, you know, I can make simple little counters that I can use that are three-dimensional for a Chinese chess game. And then after looking at those, I thought, why don't I just do some ancients? It's not that much different.
Well, you know you're doing something right. When my daughter, who's with us for the first time here at Barrage, 12 years old, interested in videography, really no interest in gaming whatsoever. There's one thing that had her rushing up to me today going, Dad, you've got to see this. And it was Matt's game because of these figures. She thought they were super cool just as much as I do. And I think what you're doing is great. And I look forward to seeing your games every time we come out to these things.
Thanks.
So thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
As we're walking through the game space, I also saw a fun Age of Eagles game going on, the Battle of Caldiero, 1805. And Age of Eagles is a rule set that we play a lot in our club, so definitely familiar with that one, and a nice looking presentation.
Right, and then, you know, I've just overall, leaving aside specific games, I've been impressed with the venue, the way the Hawks run this. You know, it's not nearly as big as the big HMGS conventions that we're used to, but this is like they use the tagline "gaming the way it's supposed to be," and you know, I think they hit the nail right on the head. It's a small atmosphere, although there's still, you know, over 130 people here, with a lot of games, great location, easy parking.
There was somebody walking around asking for my food and drink order.
Exactly. Yes.
Come on, like, did you get that at Historicon?
Yeah.
Somebody coming, hello, would you like something to drink? Why, yes, as a matter of fact, I would.
And so it's a very different feel. I wouldn't say it's a better feel, because the HMGS conventions are very impressive. We love going to those.
That's just a different scale, but for a convention that's being put on by a club, this is an incredible effort.
Absolutely.
And they've done a really cool job. And, you know, despite the relatively small size of this, they've still got a Flames of War, official Flames of War tournament, and they actually have one of the largest Art de la Guerre tournaments on the East Coast that's happening right now. I think they've got over 20 players in that.
I was actually surprised as well by the number of vendors that they have here. Some of the same ones you see at HMGS, but it's nice to be able to come to a small regional convention and maybe pick up some miniatures that you need. And as far as the flea market, there was a lot of the typical stuff you find at a flea market, but I certainly had a big score when I managed to pick up some GMT games that I'd been looking for very, very reasonable prices. And so, you know, big thanks to the Hawks and Buck Surdo in particular for inviting us down here. And if you want to hear a little bit more about Barrage and the Hawks and the history of all of this stuff, we've taped an interview with Buck, so you can find out all about that, which will be up on the site too.
Thanks a lot for watching Little Wars TV. We'll see you guys next week.